All right, guys, we're talking more UFC 229 fight breakdowns. I'm not able to do as many breakdowns as I want to, but I'm getting a few of the big ones out. I'll definitely tell you that. So, anyways, guys, let's get into it. We're talking about Tony Ferguson versus Anthony Pettis, UFC 229, October 6th. That's coming up this Saturday. Tony Ferguson is still the number 2 lightweight in the UFC. His record is 23-3. In the UFC, he is 13-1. He has had 3 TKO KOs and 6 submissions out of those 13 wins. And Tony Ferguson, without a doubt, this guy is a well-rounded, all-around mixed martial artist. When I talk about his strengths, I could go on and on and on and on. So I just picked out a few. I just picked out 3 to talk about just to kind of get this thing rolling because we don't want it to go all night long. Anyways, guys, first strength, the guy is creative as hell. His striking is creative. You know, the way that he feints, even his feints, his movement, his timing. Everything about it is creative. The way that he throws, even the way that he throws his punches, I'm not going to say creative. It's a little bit, he can be unorthodox at times. But he throws everything. He'll throw knees, elbows, spinning back fists, flying knees, head kicks. He throws everything at you. He'll even just pump a simple jab at you at times. He'll salsa dance. I mean, you know, the footwork, the movement, just the general movement of his feet is just great. I think we saw him, the decision win against RDA was when we just saw his striking straight up, because I don't think that they went to the ground during that fight. And if they did, it wasn't for long at all. He just showed off impeccable striking. Actually, I don't think they went to the ground. No, because they were in Mexico City. I don't think anybody wanted to go to the ground and start getting tired out. So, yeah, but it was just beautiful striking. I mean, just popping the jabs, spinning stuff on them, blitzing them. And it was the timing. RDA really could never time anything off of the guy because it was so unorthodox. It really was. I mean, there was points where his feints were salsa dances. He would do a little salsa and then boom, start throwing shots at him. You know, just the striking game of Tony Ferguson is top notch. It's top notch. Doesn't quite have the power, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But the striking is definitely top notch. I'll say that. Next thing, Tony Ferguson is incredibly, if I was talking about the striking, I would say he's rangy, right? But I wanted to point out just his limbs, just his arms. He's got an incredible reach and he knows how to use it when it comes to grappling. When it comes to grappling, he really knows how to use his long arms. You know, he wraps up that Darce choke no problem because it doesn't take much for him to get his arms around your neck, right? He doesn't have to squeeze. When Tyron Woodley was working on that Darce, when he was working on the Darce against Darren Till, he had to keep inching his fingers up the bicep, right? Remember that he kept inching his fingers up the bicep, just inching them up, up, up. But that's not Tony Ferguson. I mean, Tony Ferguson has so much reach. His reach is so good that he just needs to be in the area of your neck and he can wrap that puppy up and have and be gripping his bicep, the top of his bicep, no problem. So he's dangerous on the ground, and specifically when it comes to a rear naked choke or a Darce choke. Specifically, and even on that cage when it comes to those chokes as well. So I'll just say I would just advise anybody stay away from the ground with Tony Ferguson. But the sad thing is I think this fight is going to be a ground fight. Anyways, the last strength that I'll say about Tony Ferguson, his confidence. When he comes into the octagon and you've already fought 4 long, hard rounds with the guy and you're in Mexico City, you would expect him to be a little bit tired, right? You would expect your opponent on the other side of that octagon to be just a bit tired or slightly winded. 4 long rounds in Mexico City with the altitude. Yeah, you would expect that guy to be tired. Tony Ferguson was like a machine. He was still out there throwing heavy leather, excited, smiling, dancing. Tony Ferguson is incredibly confident. Now, he's coming off as incredibly cocky leading up to this fight. There's a strange sort of cocksureness about him where he's just like, you guys doubted me. But now I don't know if anybody was doubting him. I think everybody wanted to see him back, and we just wanted to make sure he was good. But normally it's just confidence with Tony Ferguson. It really is. It's sheer confidence. He carries himself like a true fighting professional. Like a true fighting professional. That is how Tony Ferguson takes himself. So I'm not mad at it one bit. Not mad at it one bit. And I think that confidence, when it comes to Anthony Pettis, this type of confidence can make Anthony Pettis quit in a fight, I think. I think it could make him quit in a fight. So, Tony Ferguson, like we say, the guy is great, but he does have some weaknesses in his game. Let's go ahead and talk about those weaknesses. It's his head movement. And this is going to tie into the second weakness. I'm going to put them both together. He gets hit a lot. He really does get hit a lot. And I think it has a lot to do with, even though his timing is off, it's like very unorthodox. It's off. It's very different. It's scattered. It's staggered. Everything is different. But it seems like his head movement is kind of in the same zone. It's kind of in the same way. He doesn't necessarily slip a punch. He doesn't slip a punch hard. Actually, you won't see him really slip punches. You might see him duck. You'll see him kind of maybe move side to side. I mean, you might see him duck. You definitely might see him duck. You might see him squat, level change out of to evade a strike. But you won't really see him sort of slip, like literally get his head out the way. He's always getting clipped just a little bit. And some of those punches take him down to the ground, knocking him down. So I'm trying to think. I think that Michael Johnson was able to knock him down. Lando was able to knock him down. And Edson Barboza. So he can get hit. He can get hit a lot. I mean, granted, it's a fight. It is a fight. When I say he gets hit a lot, it's almost like you don't know if that's a strength or a weakness because it is a fight. So if you're in a fight and a guy is getting hit, but he's not losing, he's still winning, what you're watching is just a fight. So it's kind of tough to call that a weakness. But look, where someone's scoring you, every time somebody hits you, they're scoring on you. So yeah, I got to call that a weakness because they're not going to give you any, oh yeah, golden star for taking that punch. One hell of a way to take that punch without getting knocked out. I mean, nobody says that. I mean, the fans say that, but the judges are not. And that's what this is based on. But, that's just my quick little blurb about Tony Ferguson and his fight skills, what he kind of brings to the table. What I'll say is that if Tony Ferguson wins this fight, if he can pull off the win on this fight, that means that basically just means that we don't know what it means because Tony Ferguson, he can win this fight no matter where the fight goes. If it's standing, he can get a decision. If it's on the ground, he's choking you out. If it's in the clinch, he's clipping you with knees. He might get a TKO, anything. So I really believe Tony, that guy can win this fight any place that the fight goes. Any place that the fight goes. So, I'll say, look, I'm excited to see Tony Ferguson out there and see what happens with him. I'm glad that he's back in the octagon. That is one thing I will say. Now let's get into Anthony Pettis. Anthony Pettis is the former lightweight champion of the world. He is currently number 8 in the UFC lightweight rankings. He is 21-7. His UFC record, 8-6. He has 2 TKOs, 4 submissions. Anthony Pettis was that guy for a minute. Everybody was looking at him like, whoa, man, this guy can really strike. He can throw some fancy kicks. He can throw some fun kicks. But then we all realized that that was just kind of like stuff for I don't know. We all just realized that, not that he was a hype job or anything like that, but it's like that karate stuff, all of those kicks and everything, that they can easily be stopped. That's one thing we realized very quickly. Those kicks can easily be stopped. They can be caught. You can be flipped. You can be put on your ass. And then what are you going to do? Right? What are you going to do at that point? So, I'll say, yeah, Pettis was the man at one point, but he has really fallen off this skid of 6 losses. Is really making me skeptical, but let's go ahead and get into his strengths. All right, so Anthony Pettis, this guy has a really clean outside game, right? His outside game is incredibly clean. That's how we got to see all of those, Showtime kicks. Just from him being, having his fighter out of range and him jumping into range, right? Jumping in range to clip his opponent up. I really do believe that when he plays that outside game, he plays it perfectly. He keeps you just out of range so that he can dart in and kind of do something magical. I really do think that if Anthony Pettis can kind of keep Tony on the outside, he might be able to steal a round or two. He just might be able to steal a round. All right, so let's get into the second strength for Anthony Pettis. We're talking about BJJ skills. His BJJ from the bottom is lethal. BJJ from the bottom is really, really good. He really knows how to hold onto a wrist and just wrap something up. He really does. I don't like Anthony Pettis on the ground. Like, if he gets to the ground, I get nervous because somebody could literally just lay on him the whole time, and he would lose the fight based on that. He would definitely lose the fight based on that, but I'll just say, for now, a strength is that BJJ from the bottom. I mean, he fights really well from the bottom. He does. So, don't have too many strengths for Anthony Pettis at the moment because really all I see is glaring weaknesses. I hate to say it like that, but it really is just glaring weaknesses with him. But I do think that Anthony Pettis, look, he's in a fight. He's in a fight, which means he has a chance to win just like the other guy. So, hey, I may be talking about more weaknesses, but that just means these are little things that I hope that he cleaned up to make it a scrap. All right, so weakness number 1. Anthony Pettis is known to give up in fights. He just seems to be deflated. Like, I've seen him just deflate in fights. All right, so yeah, Max Holloway beat Anthony Pettis. And, Anthony Pettis, he had to stop because, one, he missed weight. He missed weight for that fight. And then he had to stop because he was like, I broke my hand. So, he gave up. Then the news came out. He was like, oh, I actually didn't break my hand, guys. It's all good. And you're just kind of like, well, why were you carrying on crying and carrying on, with all of that? So it got a little bit, I don't know. It started to make me think maybe he just gives up in fights. That's what I thought. I want him to go in there mentally strong, mentally tough, knowing that he can give it to any fighter on that roster because Anthony Pettis does still have it. He really does still have it. So it's kind of, I don't know. It was difficult to see him in that fight just give up in the Max Holloway fight. Also in the Dustin Poirier fight. Now I understand that he had a rib injury, but it really starts to look like giving up. It really does. It's like, just sometimes you got to just tough it out. Sometimes you have to tough it out. But I understand fighters matter too. Like, it's like they have to take care of their bodies as well. They're the ones who have to go out there and pay for the surgery, pay for all of this stuff. So I'm cool with that. I'm cool with him saying, look, I gave up because I was in pain. That's fine. But I also have the right to then say this. You gave up in a fight, and that is a weakness. If somebody knows that they can make you quit without actually submitting you, then you're in trouble. Because now there's another layer, right? It's not that you can just be kicked. It's not just that you can be knocked out. And it's not just that you can be submitted. And now it means that we can make you give up too, without any of that. No submission threat, no TKO threat. So that's one thing. I hope he's saying his woo-saws. He's meditating. He's getting centered for this fight because it's going to be, Tony Ferguson is probably trying to come in and take Anthony Pettis' head off in the first round. All right, so we'll get into the next weakness for Anthony Pettis. It's just two weaknesses that I have, and they're kind of related. So he does give up in fights. And then the second one, his wrestling sucks. I really hope that they worked on the wrestling, or either being evasive and not getting caught in the clinch or on the fence. Because, the other guy is scoring points, but it's almost like these fighters, they know what to do with Anthony Pettis. They know just to kind of grapple him and you'll get an easy decision. I don't like that tactic, but it's like Anthony Pettis needs to come up with a strategy that will make people stop doing that. If he can catch him coming in and knee him in the head like Yoel Romero did, that would be perfect. That would be absolutely perfect. But, it is what it is. You can't be too mad at Anthony Pettis and kind of his whole wrestling or grappling skills. I think he's been trying to work on it recently, though. He has said that he's given up trying to work on his grappling. He'll never be a good grappler, never be a good wrestler. But he does have BJJ. And I think that does kind of even out. I really do. It's like, yeah, he isn't going to be a better wrestler. The guy has grown. I think he's 30 or something like that. The guy has grown. That's never happening again. That ship has sailed, the wrestling ship. But if he's good at BJJ, he can use that to try and get himself further along in fights. That's what I was saying. Try to get him further along in fights, at least back to his feet. Now, that was one thing that I wish that he did work on, stuffing the takedown to where he doesn't get taken down. Like, literally just stuff the takedown. Don't have to get back up. Don't have to try to work yourself back up. I'm just not, I think that would be odd, because Tony Ferguson would end up winning the whole fight just by trying to take him down. Now, I want this to be a scrap. I really do. What I'll say is, if Anthony Pettis wins this fight, how did he do it? He did it by, I would have to say, by keeping the fight standing. I think that's Pettis' only chance. I know that he has less TKOs than submissions, but I would be nervous with Tony Ferguson. Anthony Pettis has that little bitty neck. He's got that teeny tiny neck. Tony Ferguson's just going to have fun wrapping that thing up in those long ass arms. I think so. I'll just say that. If Tony Ferguson wins, then that means that the fight went anywhere, because Tony Ferguson can win anywhere. Now, if Anthony Pettis wins, that means that he kept it standing and he stayed out of range. Anyways, guys, that's my fight breakdown for Tony Ferguson versus Anthony Pettis. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. Let me know if there's anything else that you think Tony or Anthony bring to the table. Just hit me up in the comment section. Let me know. Share with Channel MMA with Jay. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. Leave your thoughts in the comment section.